Okay, let's talk about a metal that isn't just for your grandma's jewelry anymore. We're talking about silver, and it's become the absolute lifeblood of, well, our entire future, both green and digital. And right now, it is caught in the middle of a perfect storm that could send its price into the stratosphere. So today, we are going to break down what's being called the Great Silver Squeeze of 2026.
So, here's the billion-dollar question, or maybe the $100-an-ounce question. After the insane run-up we saw in 2025, could silver really crack into triple digits this year? I mean, that's what everyone is asking. To figure out if that's even in the realm of possibility, we've got to dig into some powerful and frankly completely unprecedented forces that are all hitting at the same time.
And look, this isn't just some random hype from the internet. We're talking about Bank of America, one of the biggest players on the street, putting out some absolutely wild numbers. I mean, look at that range. Up to $309? That's not just a minor price adjustment. That's a call for a historic, once-in-a-generation revaluation. So you got to ask yourself, what on earth is going on?
All right, so the story really kicks off with a massive shift in what silver is actually for. For decades, it was kind of seen as gold's forgotten little brother. A good store of value, sure, but not the main event. Well, that's completely changed. We are now in the middle of a demand tsunami from industry that is just completely rewriting the rule book for silver.
And to really get this, you have to understand a crucial economic idea: inelastic demand. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. It just means that for all the new tech building our future, there is no good substitute for silver. Think about it. Companies making solar panels, AI chips, EVs, they have to have it. They need it to build their products. So they're going to buy it, pretty much no matter what the price tag says.
Okay, let's look at the first driver, solar power. This one industry alone is now devouring over a quarter of the entire annual silver supply. But here's the real kicker, the part that's kind of counterintuitive. The newest, most efficient solar cells, they actually need more silver, not less. And with places like the EU mandating solar on new buildings starting this year, well, you can see how this demand is basically baked into the cake for years to come.
Next up, a big one, the AI revolution. Silver is literally the most electrically conductive element on the planet. That makes it non-negotiable for the high-performance GPUs from companies like NVIDIA and AMD that power this whole thing. Every single time a new AI data center gets built, it creates this huge new pocket of demand for silver that, frankly, didn't even exist just a few years back.
And of course, we can't forget about electric vehicles. This shift away from internal combustion engines is another monster demand driver. I mean, every single EV uses 2, sometimes 3 times more silver than a regular gas-powered car. It's crucial for the batteries, the power electronics, all of it. So yeah, it's a simple equation. More EVs on the road means way more silver demand.
So let's put this all together. What does the big picture look like? Well, this chart really says it all. Look at that. Industrial use now makes up almost 60% of all silver demand. This is the point I really want to drive home. We're not talking about coins and silverware anymore. Silver is now a core strategic commodity. It's what's powering the green and AI revolutions. That's the new reality, and honestly, it's a total game changer. Okay, so we've got this absolute explosion in demand. Got it. But that is only one half of the equation. Now we have to flip over and look at the other side of the coin, which is a supply situation that is, to put it mildly, struggling to keep up. Just look at this number, 200 million ounces. That's the estimated shortfall this year between what the world needs and what miners can actually pull out of the ground. And this isn't some one-off blip. Nope, this is the 5th year in a row we've had a massive deficit. That means we are literally burning through the world's stockpiles at a pretty terrifying rate. So you've basically got 2 freight trains heading right for each other. On one track, you have this relentless, unstoppable demand growth, and on the other, you have a supply chain that's been basically flat for the last 10 years. You just can't have those 2 things happening at the same time forever. Something's got to give. And in economics, that something is usually the price. So you're probably thinking, well, if the price is so high, why don't miners just, mine more silver? And that's the real catch. Here's the weird thing about silver mining. Most of it isn't mined on purpose. Up to 80% of it is just a byproduct when they're really digging for copper, lead, or zinc. So even if the price of silver goes to the moon, they can't just flick a switch and produce more of it. Their output is completely tied to the market for these other metals. And then, just when you thought the market couldn't get any tighter, a geopolitical bombshell just drops out of nowhere. On January 1st of this year, China, a huge player in processing silver, basically just slammed the doors shut on exports. Poof! Just like that, a massive chunk of the world's supply was taken offline, and you can bet that sent companies in the US and Europe into a full-blown panic.
So let's recap. You've got unstoppable demand crashing head-on into an inflexible supply. And then, for good measure, you throw a massive geopolitical shock right into the mix. I mean, this is the literal definition of a perfect storm. All these powerful forces are converging at the exact same time, creating a market event unlike anything we've ever really seen before.
Oh, and if you thought that was it, think again. On top of all that fundamental stuff, you've got a whole layer of macroeconomic factors just pouring gasoline on the fire. A weaker dollar makes silver cheaper for everyone else to buy. The Fed cutting rates makes holding metals more attractive. And all the geopolitical tension in the world, that's driving a flight to safety. After years of people pulling money out, investors are now flooding back into silver ETFs, piling their demand right on top of that already insane industrial demand.
Okay,
So where does all of this leave us for the rest of the year? Let's take a look at what the big banks are actually forecasting, but let's also be realistic and look at the risks, the things that could derail this whole story.
This chart gives you a pretty good snapshot of where the smart money is placing its bets. And yeah, there's a bit of a range, but the general direction is pretty clear: up. You've got heavy hitters like Citigroup and Goldman Sachs saying triple-digit silver is a real possibility. And then there's Bank of America again, with that peak potential that would just completely shatter every record we've ever seen.
But we have to be balanced here. This isn't a guaranteed one-way trip. There are definitely real risks. What if the Fed suddenly changes course and gets aggressive with rates? That would strengthen the dollar and be a headwind. What if a global recession hits? That would almost certainly soften industrial demand. And hey, if prices stay this high for long enough, you can bet companies will get serious about using less silver. They call it thrifting. And recycling is going to look a whole lot more profitable, which could bring new supply online.
When you boil it all down, though, I think this quote really nails the most important takeaway. This isn't just some flash in the pan, some temporary speculative bubble. The fundamental role of silver in our world has changed. It's gone from being a secondary precious metal to a primary strategic asset. This is a deep, structural shift. It's not a fad. And that leaves us with one last, really big question to think about.
Think about this for a second. For the first time in, well, modern history, we're using up a critical industrial metal, one with no good substitute, faster than we can mine it. So as silver makes this final transformation from just a monetary metal to an absolute strategic necessity, the real question isn't if the price is going to go up. The real question is, what happens to our entire green and digital future when we start to run out?